Explosion. Welcome to 2024 and this new episode of the Cambrian Explosion.
Hey, Nabeel, thank you, and it's good to be back. We had a bit of a hiatus for the winter break, looking forward to starting a new season of the show, and we have some really cool surprises in store for the listeners, including a new team member joining us, Mahwish. Welcome to the team.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see what chaos we talk about this year.
Yeah, we'll cause a Cambrian explosion of new podcast episodes.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So I've known Mahwish for a long time, and she has been um, an amazing person and inspiration for me. She was leading Packathon, a hackathon that we used to run. So she has definitely the chops to talk about technology, and she brings in a lot of experience around HR and finance as well. So very happy to have her on board. So Mavish, what good old-fashioned topic are we talking about today?
Thank you for all the awesome words. I'm going to see what I can do and hold up to that speech you gave about me. But yeah, no. Today we're going to be talking about microplastics and whether we're more plastic than we think, and if we are, then are we really the OG robots that everyone keeps talking about?
I hear there's like mutations happening. What was your joke earlier about that, Yawar? I forgot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how much of you guys are real and how much of you guys is actually plastic? How much plastic am I talking to right now? Is my question.
Would be all a camouflage of
Yeah.
Mid-Journey right now. It's not really us.
Yeah, yeah. You know, like that meme that a couple of years ago, like everything is cake.
Yeah.
You're looking at my wife. Oh no, she's actually a cake. They cut the wife and they get a piece slice of cake. So it's like that.
Yeah, it's I feel like a robot already, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
toy figure. Actually, it turns out we will become toy figurines in the future because like Cambrian
Mm,
Explosion toy figurines. Haha, pretty
mm.
cool.
Yeah, that
We
would be
should
funny. Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that.
we should
But
check that
really,
out.
yeah, yeah. But really, what are microplastics? Like we mention this as a joke, but there's something that are starting to change our DNA and how life's DNA is constructed. It's a very interesting topic that has taken up some that has been trending since last year, since last couple of years, and we thought we'd give a little more depth to the topic and discuss it because it is going to impact life and the future as we know it, and it's slowly creeping up on us. Um, so yeah, we thought we'd cover that. Um, Tell me, what do you guys know about microplastics?
Well, yeah, that's a pretty heavy topic. I think we should maybe talk a little bit about. We were saying that how much of our, you guys is plastics. Well, that was only partly a joke, right? Because it's kind of a well-known fact that plastics are like all over the place, and they're mostly not recycled throughout the world, and they mostly end up in the ocean, and they mostly end up inside biological ecosystems like fish and marine life, and they find their way back to humans through the food chain. So everybody is consuming some amount of plastics all the time. So that's basically a very like short breakdown of the whole idea of
Yeah.
microplastics.
I think we're consuming like 5 grams of plastic a week, which is about the weight of a credit card. So I think it's, if you think about it, if a week and then how long we live for, that's a
Yeah,
lot of weight already added to us in plastic.
true. But
Yeah.
Mahwish, what's the credit limit on that credit card? Is the real question.
I think if we hit the max and max out, that might be a problem.
Yeah, true, true. That would be a problem for sure. So yeah, we're consuming plastics, right? And it's not just us; it's all kinds of animals out there in on the ocean and on land. They're all part of the system, which is consuming plastic. But where are all these plastics coming from and what are they doing to us and why don't we solve this problem, right? Like what is preventing us from figuring out a solution to this plastic problem?
Well, let's first tackle that first question. Where
Mm.
where are these plastics coming from? So,
Right.
um, this is not like, so one. It's not just plastics here. The key thing is microplastics, because they
Mm.
are much smaller and they can become part of the food supply
Mhm.
chain. So they can get ingested as compared to like a bigger piece of plastic, which you
Mm.
wouldn't be ingesting, or which would be hard to ingest. So it's the size. They're like very,
Mm.
very tiny particles that we're talking about.
Right.
um, and they come from a lot of different places. um, this plastic is used everywhere, from like, from what I know about it, is that originally it was, the cosmetics. You had glitter. You can think of glitter
Glitter.
as like as a type of microplastic.
It's a ready-made microplastic, right?
Yeah, it's a ready-made microplastic. But that gives you a sense of what a
Mm.
microplastic is, that or smaller. But like where
Right.
it comes from is like every process that
Mhm.
is corrosive or has friction. So
Mhm.
UV light, oxidization, the presence of salt, friction itself, all of these will break plastic pieces
Mhm.
and into these little chunks, these little polymers that are floating. And you wash something you're creating. You wash a plastic piece of
Right.
a plastic uh, cup or a plate,
Mm.
and you scrub it. You're actually creating microplastics at that time.
Right. So I'm reading this article, and we'll sort of link that, which
Mm,
says that according to a 2020 research from the Pew Charitable Trust,
mm,
they found in their study that car tires make up about 78% of the microplastics in the ocean. In other words, 70%, almost 80% of the microplastics in the ocean are coming from the friction, uh, the tiny pieces of plastic that were kicked off from friction on car tires. So car tires, obviously, well, you're going to find them everywhere you go in the world, right? On land.
yeah.
Uh, and cars are on the road. They're going around. Our whole, like, you could say, like, huge portions of our economy and civilization is built on cars and roads. And now all of these tires emit microplastics, and which seem to be even worse than the actual exhaust fume emissions from the cars in terms of the amount of toxic materials coming out of the tires.
But
Mm.
how do they go from being on our streets to directly going into the ocean
Right, right,
to
right.
such a degree that it's causing this problem? That's my
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. So, um, and this is my guess. I'm not an ecologist or, climate scientist or something like that. But to me, what it seems like is that you have friction on the road. The microplastics are released into the atmosphere or into the ground, and they get caught in the water cycle of the earth, right?
Yeah.
So what happens in the water cycle is that you get rain and other moisture which wash surfaces on land, and they wash off the even from the air, and those things that get washed out, they end up in streams, rivers, lakes, and eventually they end up in the ocean, and they find their way down into the water table. Eventually it leaches out into the ocean because all of the systems are connected, right, in terms of the water cycle of the planet. So the ocean is the largest reservoir of water, and eventually all of these like materials find their way to the ocean.
Let me actually give you a number on that.
Mhm.
There's 170 trillion tons of plastic residue in the oceans.
Mm.
170 trillion tons. That's a lot.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. And these materials are, they're forever materials, right? They're not going to go away.
yeah, that's the other part of it.
Yeah.
Microplastics are like persistent. Um, they're also the way that the water systems work. They end up collecting in specific areas, creating high densities like a great garbage patch.
Mhm.
Um, and then finally, like not only are the effects of what plastics in our food supply will do unknown to us, but they are part of the food supply because they have become
Mm.
so ingrained in the water system, and almost all life is dependent on that.
And then
Um,
that's why I'm assuming after hearing all this, a lot of high processed food, like our junk food essentially, like
mm,
chips and all that stuff, must then contain a lot of these microplastics.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Plastics, and many other kinds of, matter material which you definitely don't want to think about in your food, but in like small quantities, like as you pointed out, Mawish, which add up to about a credit card a week, right? Worth of material that you are ingesting, in terms of plastic that goes into your system. So yeah, this is kind of like weird to think about, kind of scary. Like we're taking in all this plastic into our systems throughout our lives, and what happens to it? Like do we process it somehow? Do we get rid of it, or does it just build up in our bodies? Like what happens to our bodies on these plastics?
Well, I think plastic obviously is not naturally occurring in your body. So I'm assuming
Mm,
that's why and again, this is just my assumption, but you'll notice that nowadays you see people with more issues with their health. You see them
mm,
with cancer, with other
mm,
diseases that doctors never thought of before,
mm,
right? So
yeah,
uh, if you have something that's not naturally occurring in the body
mm,
and you're consuming it on a daily basis, then
mm,
whether you're in the hospital or not, it's going to affect your daily life in a certain way, right? You might have more headaches than normal.
right.
You might, if you're eating a lot of processed foods that could have been in contact with microplastics, then it's gonna quite literally weigh you down.
Mm.
yeah.
Right? So,
I like that joke. Weigh
So
you down, quite
right, right.
literally way. Uh,
So yeah, there's that question of, are these things carcinogenic? We know certain foods and materials are definitely carcinogenic. Like obviously, I think we all know by now that charred food that, like, on burgers or things that maybe on a grill or barbecue, the charred parts of that food are carcinogenic, right? Because of
Tasty
the
but carcinogenic.
very tasty, but
Yes.
carcinogenic. So plastics, I don't know, but I would definitely not be surprised. It's definitely not natural, so it could have an adverse reaction with the cells in our bodies, with our genetics.
Well,
Uh,
we have some idea of some of the reactions that happen in plants, at least.
mhm,
Um, it reduces photosynthesis. It reduces their ability to absorb nutrients as well in high enough dosages. In small dosages, it actually causes plants to grow faster for some reason, but in high enough dosages, it has these issues. On top of that, there's definitely research coming out that it can actually affect your DNA and RNA systems. So
okay,
back to that question around, are we going to have extra plastic arms? That uh, joke. Um, Very possible. Um,
right.
and I think therefore the question really comes like, with all of these challenges in front of us, how do we start solving
Mm,
for this? Like there needs
mm,
to be some, what's happening right now
right.
to combat the increase in plastics
Mm,
in the systems. Also keeping in mind that oil and plastics have a
mm.
very close relationship. Of Plastics are mostly made from petroleum and oil products as well.
So you're saying the fossil fuel industry has a very vested interest in the continuing use of plastic?
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. We more more pet- Plastics form from what I know, plastics form a bigger market for petroleum products than does driving a car, and fuel consumption like that. Like I'm
Right,
only
because it has um, applications throughout the economy at every level, from industrial to
yeah
personal.
from your toothbrush to the pen I'm
Yeah.
holding to
Mm,
the materials cars are made out of, or new materials that are being created as well,
mm,
using the same petroleum. So
mm,
um, there's a huge question around what's happening in the industry. How do we solve for this?
mm,
um,
Well, one thing that, with our research that we did for this is there are products that we are intentionally adding microplastics to for
mm,
stability, right? So we're adding it to cosmetics, we're
mm,
adding it to facial scrubs, we're adding it to pesticides.
mm,
And so it's at some level it's needed in our economy for it to survive. So
mm, mhm,
if you're using it all the way on pesticides because you want your crops to grow and you can harvest them faster so you can get
mm.
all the products to the grocery store, and then all the way down to cosmetics, which is, a big, you know, industry right
Huge
now.
industry.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we need microplastics in a way. And then as Nabeel
Yeah.
mentioned, we don't know the long-term side effects of it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely not saying it's going to be easy. Our civilization has become completely entangled with fossil fuels and derivatives like plastics. From everything from cosmetics to healthcare to transportation and beyond, right?
Yeah,
Tires.
I was reading a stat about 9% only of the world's
Mm.
plastic is recycled. So
Right.
huge amount of plastics. But you were mentioning that there's some laws being passed, or some changes that
Right.
are being made.
So governments are, at least in the developed world, are trying to crack down, in a way on plastic, which ironically, actually, I should mention before saying talking about the Western world, uh, some countries in the East as well, uh, successfully managed to get rid of a lot of plastic use. For example, in Bangladesh, like back in like early 2000s, they actually banned plastic bags, like which used to litter the roads and clog the drains, which would overflow during storms. So they solved that problem by banning plastic bags, and they replaced them with jute, paper, and other natural materials, biodegradable. And you don't see plastic bags in Bangladesh anymore. You see only cloth bags, cloth, jute, and things like that. So now, finally, what developed countries are, start trying to follow suit. So, for example, the EU banned single-use plastics in the European market since 2021. Uh, I am not sure. Obviously, I don't live in the EU, so maybe listeners who live in the EU can tell us how successful that the ban has been in terms of implementation, enforcement. Do they actually not use single-use plastics on a day-to-day basis? Like they don't use straws, cutlery, bags, things like that. That would be interesting to know, like what that looks like in daily life. I know that, and we'll reference a source which talks about Trudeau's federal government is trying to ban single-use plastics as well, but they're facing court challenges. In fact, there was just a ruling last month that the single-use plastic ban would be unconstitutional. So that definitely facing some challenges.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see these movements taking place. I
Mm,
think at the end of the day, there's got to be, first of all, a greater understanding of the issue, because if people don't know about it, they won't talk
mm,
about it, and if they don't talk
yeah,
about it, well, there's no political will to
right.
do these things. If Trudeau is trying to do something, and the other party is trying to stop it, if there's no education about the issue, then the other party will try to stop it instead of giving an alternate solution. Like there might be other solutions that might be proposed which reduce usage of plastics and yet um, is able to take care of the concerns of the
Mm.
removal of plastics from the industry.
It's
Um,
also about adoption, right? Like, how much resistance are you going to get from people
mm,
to
mm,
actually change it? So, for
Mm.
example, we learned while doing this is tea bags also contain plastic, so that when you put them in
yeah.
water, they hold up. And something as simple as that has plastics in it. If you're going to change the entire way that we see microplastics in the economy, if people don't adopt the new products or laws that you're doing, you're going to have a very big challenge as a government to actually pull
Mm.
through with this and make it happen so that everybody benefits, because people might not see the overall benefit of it inconveniences them, even if
So
Yeah, I think I've personally seen that many families here in Canada, many people go out and buy water bottles, mineral water bottles to drink at home, which always kind of like shocks me because I think that Canada is supposed to have drinkable water supply. Why do people need to buy mineral water? It makes you think about like the mineral water bottled water controversy, like Dasani, which was found to contain microplastics in the Dasani mineral water. And according to my source, microplastics have been linked to diabetes, heart disease, obesity, cancer, reproductive problems, and other diseases as well. So it's definitely not good news.
when you guys, so I heard two different aspects in here. So first, Yawar, you were mentioning the bans, and then Mahwish, you talked about behavior change, and when you look at these two things, it's usually a need for both a push and a pull approach.
Mhm.
So punishment for using
Mm.
plastic bags, but probably punishment on an industrial commercial scale, and then on the individual scale, have some kind of reward kind of system. And we've already trained society to, for example, a lot of us separate our recyclables from our non-recyclables, and we've just gotten people to start doing that just by good education. So I can see both a push and a pull
Mm.
approach. So a bit of a stick and a bit of a carrot in
Mm.
there.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely also a matter of education. Maybe some people never really sat down and thought about it. So maybe it's good to push the news out into the world as well.
Yeah, but I did want to recap the episode. I want
Yeah.
to talk about one final thing. The microplastics are part of our ecosystems. It's a given. Like you
Hmm.
cannot take out 170 trillion tons of plastic from the oceans. Um, it's going to be part of the ecosystem. The good news, however, is that life is very versatile and
Hmm.
it adapts as well. So we've already started finding studies have been done in the Great Garbage Patch on how life
Hmm.
has started to adapt to process microplastics, to live around them and live with them.
Hmm.
So it's a there's change happening, and
Yeah, there's plastic eating bacteria. Have you heard of these things? They're being developed right now,
yeah.
which are said to be able to break down plastics.
Yeah, so I think that there's an element of looking at the positive as well,
Hmm.
and looking at,
Hmm.
this is part of life, and we're gonna have to adapt to to
Hmm.
um, to to the existence of microplastics in our daily lives.
Okay,
Uh,
so then for our listeners, please make sure to follow, subscribe, and like our podcast, so that we can continue to grow. Make sure you leave a comment whether you like what we're talking about. If you don't like us, that's great too. Just let us know what you don't like so we can fix it and keep improving. Maybe you found our jokes very corny and it's too much for you. Let us know. And we'll take it back and give it to the AI bots and see what they say. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. I, for one, welcome our AI plastic overlords.
Yeah, exactly. And stay tuned for our next podcast, which we will talk about our Nabeel, I think it's electronic vehicles that,
Yes, we're going to be talking about electrical vehicles,
yes,
the climate change policy that Trudeau is putting in place.
yes, and whether you should, whether Teslas are worth it or not.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to that. I hope everybody's as excited as I am to bash Teslas. No,
Awesome.
I'm just kidding. We're going to cover all aspects of EVs and take a look at what kind of future with EVs that we're going to have.
Damn, I was really looking forward to bashing Tesla.
Oh, you can still bash Tesla, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we are signing off. See you all next time.
Till next time.
Cheers. Take care.
Oh, bye.